I stumbled across FBI footage that's been buried for decades, and what I saw in that abandoned patrol cabin made me physically sick. Something inhuman stalked that officer for weeks before the cameras went dark. The government has tried to scrub this from existence, but the tapes don't lie, and the creature's face in that final frame will haunt me forever. But here's what nobody's asking. If the FBI knew this thing was out there hunting their own agents, what else are they hiding about what's living in those woods? The fog hung so thick in the trees that morning, I could barely see 10 feet ahead of me. I work as a ranger in the Olympic National Forest, and I've walked these trails 1,000 times. But that day felt different. The air was too quiet. No birds sang, no squirrels rustled in the branches. Just the sound of my boots crunching on dead leaves and my own breathing in the cold. I was checking old service roads when I saw it. A cabin I'd never noticed before, sitting in a small clearing about 50 yards off the main path. The wood was dark gray and rotting. Moss covered the roof like a green blanket. The windows were so dirty they looked black. I pulled out my map and studied it. No cabin was marked here. Nothing at all. My radio crackled with static. I tried calling base but got no answer. The trees were too thick. I was on my own. Something told me to turn around and leave. But I've been a ranger for 15 years. I've seen abandoned hunting shacks and old logging camps. This was probably nothing. I walked toward the front door. The porch creaked under my weight. The wood felt soft, like it might break through any second. A rusted sign hung crooked next to the door. I wiped away the dirt and read the faded letters. U.S. Department of Justice. Federal Bureau of Investigation. My stomach dropped. What was an FBI cabin doing out here in the middle of nowhere? I pushed the door open. It scraped against the floor with a horrible grinding sound. The smell hit me first. Mold and rot and something else I couldn't name. Something that made my skin crawl. I clicked on my flashlight and stepped inside. The cabin was small, just one room with a desk, a cot, and some metal shelves. Papers were scattered everywhere. A chair lay on its side. Deep scratches ran down the wooden walls, like someone had dragged their fingernails across them, or something had clawed at them from outside. I felt my heart beating faster. On the desk sat an old camera, the kind with a big lens that news reporters used back in the day. The lens was cracked. Next to it were 5 VHS tapes in black plastic cases. I picked one up. Someone had written on it in marker. Week 3, night surveillance. My hands were shaking as I set it back down. I found more tapes on the shelf. Dozens of them, all labeled with dates from '93, 32 years ago. I also found a thick notebook with a leather cover. The pages were yellowed and some were stuck together from moisture. I opened it carefully. The first page read, Officer Michael Graves, Patrol Log, June 1993. I knew I should call this in. This was federal property, maybe even a crime scene. But my radio still wasn't working, and I had to know what was on those tapes. I gathered them up along with the notebook and the camera. I told myself I'd watch them at the ranger station and then report everything. That was the plan. Back at my office, I dug out an old TV and VCR from storage. My hands fumbled with the wires as I hooked everything up. I slid in the first tape. Week 1, Day Watch. The screen flickered to life with grainy footage. The camera was mounted on a tree, pointing at the cabin from about 30 feet away. I could see the front door and part of the clearing. For the first hour, nothing happened. Just trees swaying in the wind. A deer walked by. Some crows landed and took off. Normal forest stuff. I almost stopped watching. Then I saw it. At the edge of the frame, near a thick group of pine trees, something tall moved between the trunks. At first I thought it was a person, but it was too big, too wide. It walked on 2 legs, but its arms hung down almost to its knees. The footage was too far away to see details. Just a dark shape moving slowly through the trees. Then it was gone. I rewound the tape and watched again. Same thing, something walking upright, something that wasn't a bear and wasn't a person. My mouth went dry. I grabbed the notebook and started reading. June 8, 1993. Officer Graves wrote in neat handwriting. First week at the surveillance post, the mission is to monitor suspected drug running routes through the national forest. Haven't seen any activity yet. Quiet out here, maybe too quiet. The entries for the next few days were boring. Complaints about the food, notes about the weather. Then June 15th. Last night I heard something. It sounded like a woman screaming far away in the woods. But there are no houses for miles. No campers in this area. It went on for almost an hour. I couldn't sleep. My skin prickled as I read. I loaded the next tape. Week 2, Night Watch. The footage was dark. The camera had infrared, but it only showed maybe 20 feet clearly. Everything else was murky shadows. Hours passed on the tape with nothing. Then at 2:47 a.m., according to the timestamp, something moved at the very edge of the camera's range. Two eyes reflected the infrared light. They glowed white like an animal's eyes do. But they were high up, maybe 7 feet off the ground. They stared directly at the camera for 5 full seconds. Then they blinked and disappeared. I felt cold all over. I flipped through the notebook faster now. June 18th. Found tracks this morning. Footprints in the mud near the creek. They're huge. 18 inches long. 5 toes. They look almost human, but the proportions are wrong. Made a plaster cast. Something is out there. I couldn't stop watching. The next tape was labeled as Week 3, full coverage. I pushed it into the VCR and sat back in my chair. The sun was going down outside my office window. I should have gone home. I didn't. The tape started with daylight footage. Officer Graves had moved the camera closer to the cabin. Now I could see the porch and the door clearly. The timestamp read June 22nd, 1993. Nothing happened for the first 2 hours. Then Graves himself walked out the front door. He was a tall man with dark hair and a thick mustache. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt. He kept looking over his shoulder at the tree line as he walked to a small shed behind the cabin. He came back out carrying a box of supplies. His movements were jerky and fast. Nervous. He kept glancing at the woods. Then he stopped dead in his tracks and stared at something off camera. His face went white. He dropped the box and ran back inside the cabin. The door slammed shut. I heard it even through the old tape. I grabbed the notebook again. June 22nd. It came to the cabin last night. I saw it standing 20 feet from my window, just standing there in the moonlight. It's massive, 8 feet tall at least, covered in dark hair. The face looked almost human, but wrong. The eyes were too big. It watched me for 10 minutes, then walked away. I radioed for extraction, but they told me to stay put, complete the mission. They don't believe me. My hands were shaking as I turned the page. June 23rd. My food is running low. I went outside this morning to get supplies from the shed. Found the lock broken. The door was torn completely off the hinges. All my extra rations are gone, the canned goods, the dried meat, everything. It's taking my food. It knows I need it to survive. I fast-forwarded through the next tape. Week 4, night activity. The footage made my stomach turn. Every night the creature came closer. On June 24th, it walked right up to the cabin. The infrared camera caught it clearly for the first time. It was enormous. Shoulders wider than any man I'd ever seen. Arms that hung down past its knees. The face was the worst part. It looked human enough to be familiar, but wrong enough to be terrifying. The eyes were deep-set and intelligent. It stared right at the camera. Then it did something that made me stop breathing. It reached up and turned the camera to face the trees. Just reached out one massive hand and moved it like it was nothing. It knew what the camera was. It knew what it did, and it didn't want to be filmed. June 25th, the notebook entry was written in messy handwriting now. The letters were shaky. It's playing with me. Last night it walked circles around the cabin for hours. I could hear its footsteps. Heavy thuds in the dirt. It would stop at each window and look in. I blocked them with blankets, but I could feel it watching. I tried the radio again. No response. The batteries are dying. I'm alone out here. The next tape showed Officer Graves trying to set up a new camera inside the cabin. He pointed it at the front door. His hands shook so badly he dropped the camera twice. His face was thin. He had dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't shaved in days. He kept muttering to himself, but I couldn't hear what he was saying. June 27th. It tried to get in last night. I woke up to scratching at the door, then pounding. The whole cabin shook. I could hear it breathing on the other side of the wood. Deep, raspy breaths. It pounded for 20 minutes, then stopped. When I looked outside this morning, there were handprints on the door. Huge handprints. 5 fingers just like a human, but the palm was twice as big as mine. I loaded another tape with shaking hands. Week 5, final days. The footage quality was worse now. The camera was running out of battery. The picture flickered and jumped. Officer Graves had pushed his desk against the door. He'd nailed boards across the windows. The cabin looked like a prison. He sat in the corner with a pistol in his lap. He didn't move for hours. Just sat there, staring at the door. Then at 11:32 p.m. on June 29th, it started. A sound like nothing I'd ever heard. A scream that was part human and part animal. It came from right outside the cabin. Officer Graves jumped to his feet. His eyes were wild. The pounding started. Boom, boom, boom. The whole door shook with each hit. Dust fell from the ceiling. The desk scraped across the floor as the door pushed inward. Officer Graves backed into the corner. He raised his pistol with both hands. The pounding got faster, harder. Wood started to crack. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold. A voice from outside the cabin. It said, "Help me. Please help me." But it wasn't quite right. The words were clear, but the tone was off, too deep, too slow, like someone trying to copy human speech without understanding it. Officer Graves screamed. He fired 3 shots through the door. The gun was so loud, the camera microphone crackled. The pounding stopped. Everything went quiet. Graves stood there, breathing hard, his gun still pointed at the door. 1 minute passed, then 2, nothing. Then something hit the cabin wall so hard the camera fell over. The last thing I saw on the tape was the wooden wall cracking. A huge piece of it breaks inward, and a massive dark arm reaching through the hole. The screen went black. I sat in my office in complete silence. My heart pounded in my chest. I looked at the notebook. There was one more entry. July 1st, just 2 words written in shaky letters. It's inside. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe. I don't want you missing out on tomorrow's new Bigfoot story. Thanks for watching. The final video opened with nothing but darkness and the sound of fabric rustling. The phone must have fallen or been dropped. I could hear the man breathing fast. Panicked. Then light flooded the screen as he picked up the phone and turned on the flashlight. His face appeared for just a second. Pure terror. Eyes so wide I could see white all around them. His mouth hung open like he wanted to scream but couldn't. The camera spun around and pointed at the tent entrance. The zipper was moving. Something was opening it from the outside. Slowly, the metal teeth separated one by one. A hand came through, but it wasn't a hand. Not really. It was too big, too long, covered in dark hair. The fingers had thick nails that looked almost like claws. They gripped the fabric and pulled the zipper down further. The man screamed, finally screamed, a sound of complete horror. The camera dropped again and all I could see was the tent floor. But I could hear everything. The screaming. The fabric is tearing. Heavy breathing that wasn't human. A struggle. Things being knocked over. Then dragging sounds. And then nothing. Just silence in the empty tent and the phone still recording darkness for another 6 minutes before the battery died. I slammed the laptop shut. My heart pounded in my chest like a drum. My hands were shaking so bad I had to grip the edge of the desk. I sat there for a long time trying to convince myself that it was fake, that the man made it all up, that it was some kind of joke or movie project. But I knew the truth. Deep down in my bones, I knew. That man was gone. Something took him, something that shouldn't exist. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that hand pulling open the tent. I heard those screams. When morning came, I looked terrible. Sarah took one look at me and asked if I was sick. I showed her the videos, all of them. She watched in silence. Her face went pale. When it ended, she just stared at the blank screen for a full minute. Then she said we needed to go back to the site. We needed to search again, bring more people, find that man, or find what was left of him. We organized a bigger search team, 20 people this time. Dogs, better equipment. We hiked out to the campsite just after dawn. But something felt wrong from the moment we arrived. The air felt heavy, thick, like it pressed down on us. Three of the search dogs refused to go past the tree line. They pulled on their leashes and whined. Their handlers had never seen them act that way. One dog just sat down and wouldn't move, no matter what commands they gave. The team spread out to search the woods. I stayed near the campsite with Sarah and Mike. We heard the others calling out as they moved through the trees. Their voices got farther away. Fainter. Then something strange started happening. Radios began cutting out. GPS devices stopped working. Phone compasses spun in circles. People came back to the clearing looking confused, scared. One woman named Janet said she felt like something was watching her the whole time, following her, staying just out of sight. A man named Tom said his camera battery died even though he charged it that morning. It just went from full to dead in seconds. By lunchtime, 5 people said they wanted to leave. They wouldn't say why exactly, just that they needed to go. Something about the place made them feel wrong inside, sick, afraid. We let them go. No one blamed them. I felt it too, that heaviness, that sense of being watched by eyes you couldn't see. We searched until the sun started going down. We found nothing. Nobody, no blood, no clothing, just more of those massive footprints deeper in the forest. Dozens of them. Like whatever made them had been walking around out there for days. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the videos. I watched them again and again. I started seeing details I missed before. In the second night's video, you could see something in the background when the man pointed his camera outside, just for a second. A shape between the trees, tall and dark. I paused it and zoomed in, but the image was too blurry, too dark. But it was there, watching him even then. I made copies of everything. I studied the footage like it was my job, because now it was my job. It became all I thought about. Sarah got worried. She said I looked tired all the time, that I wasn't eating enough. My wife said the same thing. She said I woke up 3 or 4 times every night, that I talked in my sleep about the forest and the tent and the sonins. But I couldn't stop. I had to understand what happened. I had to know what that thing was. Word got out about the case. Small towns talk. Soon everyone knew about the missing camper and the strange footage. The local diner became divided. Some people believed it was real. They said they always knew something lived in those woods. Their grandparents told stories, old stories, about tall figures that walked like men but weren't men, about people who went into the forest and never came back, about sounds in the night that made your blood freeze. Other people laughed. They said it was fake, a hoax, that the man probably just got lost and died from exposure, that someone would find his body eventually, that there was no monster, no creature, just fear and darkness and imagination. They said people like me were crazy for believing it. 4 members of our search team refused to ever go back to that area. They quit coming to meetings, stopped answering calls. One of them moved to a different town. She told her sister she couldn't sleep anymore, that she kept hearing footsteps outside her house at night, heavy footsteps, just like the ones from the video. Her sister thought she was having a breakdown. Maybe she was. Maybe we all were. But I knew what I saw. I knew what I heard. And every night when I closed my eyes, I saw that hand reaching through the tent. Those long fingers, that dark hair, and I wondered if the man was still alive somewhere, if he was trapped, hurt, calling for help that would never come, or if he was already gone, taken by something that lived in the spaces between the trees, something we were never supposed to see. I started digging through old case files. Something told me this wasn't the first time. Something told me that the camper wasn't the only one. I spent 3 weeks going through records from the past 20 years, missing person reports from the Pacific Northwest, hikers who never came home, campers who vanished without a trace. The files filled up my desk. My office looked like a paper storm hit it. Then I found the pattern. It took me a while to see it because the cases came from different places, different states, different years, but they were all the same in one important way. Every single person who disappeared was camping alone, deep in the forest, far from roads and other people. And in 5 of the cases, someone found cameras or phones left behind, devices with footage on them, footage that was never released to the public, footage that was marked as evidence and then locked away. I made calls, lots of calls. I talked to rangers in Washington, in Oregon, in Northern California. Most of them didn't want to talk about it. They said the cases were closed, that the people probably got lost and died from the cold or fell off cliffs. Normal explanations, safe explanations. But 2 rangers told me the truth. They said they saw the footage from their cases. They said it showed the same things, sounds in the night, shadows outside tents, and then nothing, just empty campsites and missing people. One ranger named Bill told me something that made my stomach drop. He said in his case from 6 years ago, they found a camper's phone with videos on it. The last video showed something entering the tent, just like ours. But here's what got me. He said the victim in his case tried to call for help earlier that day. He reported seeing a large figure watching him from the trees. He said it stood on 2 legs like a person, but was too tall and too wide. The ranger station told him to pack up and leave, but his car wouldn't start. The battery was dead. Bill said that detail always bothered him. How the car just died like that, like something didn't want the camper to leave. I looked at our case again. The dead car battery, the broken radio signal, the GPS devices that stopped working when we searched. What if it wasn't a coincidence? What if something was doing it on purpose? The thought made me feel cold all over. It meant whatever took that man wasn't just some animal acting on instinct. It meant there was planning, thinking, intelligence. Sarah and I had long talks about what to do with the footage. The chief wanted to keep it locked up. He said releasing it would cause panic, that people would stop visiting the national forests, that it would hurt the local economy. Hotels and camping stores and guide services all depended on tourists. If word got out that something was killing people in the woods, those businesses would die. But other people disagreed. They said families had a right to know what happened to their loved ones, that hikers and campers deserved a warning, that keeping it secret was wrong, dangerous even. How many more people would disappear because we stayed quiet? How many more tents would be found empty? How many more phones would record those final terrible moments? I spent hours watching the footage again, trying to understand. That hand reaching through the tent kept playing in my mind over and over. I started to notice something. The way it moved, slow, careful, like it knew the camera was recording, like it wanted to be seen. That thought terrified me more than anything else. What if leaving the phone behind wasn't an accident? What if it was a message, a warning to others who might come looking? 3 months after we found the campsite, I got a call from a woman named Marie. She said her brother went missing in the same area last year. His tent was found, his things were all there, but he was gone. She asked if we found anything new. I didn't know what to tell her. I wanted to show her the footage, to prove that something real took her brother, that he didn't just wander off and get lost. But I couldn't. The chief made it clear. The footage stayed locked up. I think about the camper every day. I see his face in my mind, that young man with the beard and the green jacket. So happy in those first videos, so excited about his camping trip. He had no idea what was waiting for him in those trees, no idea that something was already watching, already planning. I wonder what his last thoughts were, if he had time to think at all, or if it happened too fast, too sudden. The case is still open, but no one is really looking anymore. The search teams moved on to other things, other case, other problems. The campsite sits empty now. No one goes there. The rangers put up warning signs about bear activity. That's what they tell people. Bears, not the truth, never the truth. Sometimes I drive out there alone. I park at the trailhead and walk to the clearing. I don't know why I do it. Maybe I'm hoping to find something we missed, some clue that will make sense of it all. But I never find anything, just trees and silence and that heavy feeling in the air, that sense of being watched. I keep the copied footage on a hard drive in my desk, hidden, safe. Part of me wants to release it, to upload it somewhere the whole world can see, to warn people. But another part of me knows it won't matter. People will say it's fake, edited, Made up. They'll laugh and make jokes and keep camping in those woods because believing is too scary. Accepting that something like that exists changes everything. It means the world isn't safe. It means there are things out there we don't understand, things that see us as prey. I still don't know what really happened to that camper, where his body is, if he's even dead. Sometimes I imagine him alive somewhere, deep in the forest, lost, alone, calling for help that never comes. Other times I try not to imagine anything at all. The footage is real. I know that much. What it shows is real. And somewhere out there in the dark spaces between the trees, something lives. Something that walks on two legs. Something that's smart enough to trap its prey. Something that's been doing this for a very long time. And it's still out there, still watching, still waiting for the next person who camps alone, who goes too deep, who stays too long. That's what keeps me awake at night. Not what happened, but what's still happening. What will keep happening. Because we're not telling anyone. We're keeping it secret. And every time someone disappears, every time another tent is found empty, I wonder if I could have stopped it. If speaking up would have saved them. But I stay quiet. We all stay quiet. And the forest keeps its secrets.